The unicorn, a mythical creature that is known to be described as a large beast with a single large horn. But in the NBA, the term unicorn holds a different meaning. The unicorn in the NBA terms, as described in my own way, is a player with the height of a center, but the skill sets of a guard. And like the title states, I think they are overrated. That will be today's topic here on the Alvini Linguine channel, where we talk about all things random basketball with your boy, Alvini Linguine. Now, before y'all call me a casual, leave a nasty comment, or whatever y'all weirdos do on the internet, just don't dox me. I live with my parents. I will be here explaining why throughout our modern age of basketball, why I believe unicorns are still a myth for the most part, and why NBA unicorns just don't work out in the NBA in general, and finally, naming some of these proclaimed unicorns, and explaining why the unicorn status is false. All that and more in today's video, but before we get started, you already know what I have to do first. The like goal of this video is the usual 1,000 likes to help support the channel. Subscribe if you are new for interesting basketball videos every week for your enjoyment. And finally, follow me on Twitter and Instagram for the Inside Life of Alvini, and follow me on Twitch for weekly streams. But with all that out of the way, you already know who it is, right?
He incurred an injury dealing with weights in the weight room, so he's stitched up in the left hand doing all this.
It's over, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, let's start this off with a good old educational lesson about the majesty that is a unicorn. I mean an NBA unicorn. Again, unicorns in NBA terms are usually bigger NBA players who possess guard-like skills and prowess. This term has been popularized, at least to my understanding, when Kristaps Porzingis came to the NBA in 2015, when the 7'3" prospect has shown great potential while showing flashes of guard abilities, that and the shout out that he got from KD. Taking others off the dribble, doing moves to get to the basket or creating his own shot, and as you can imagine, being able to shoot, while at the same time having the ability to do some big man stuff like shot blocking and post moves. Everyone was excited to see what this Latvian prospect could turn into with some time in the NBA, and at first it was something revolutionary. All the stuff he was doing in Europe, he was able to do the same thing in the NBA, and it gets better competition, until it didn't. See, as a person who plays basketball and study it because I have nothing to do in life, and that's all I had going for me at one point, to you wonderful people, let me talk to it to thousands of people on YouTube. I can tell you that unicorns all aren't what they seem to be. Let's go back to what I mentioned as the definition of what I believe a unicorn to be in the league. A big man who possesses guard-like skills. See, in the NBA, it is full to some of the best basketball players around the world, mixed with many skill sets, play styles, and attributes. The unicorn is still a new type of archetype that we have yet to see work yet, at least to its full capacity, until I'll talk about a certain player that is the said unicorn. Anyways, want to know why? It's because unicorns don't usually possess the full skill set to fully utilize themselves in the best way. Big men with guard skills. Yeah, scratch that one out, because they usually don't have the full skill set to actually be played as a guard. Do you all know what it takes to be a guard in the NBA? The responsibilities, and especially the skill set you have to actually have. I'll name some examples of so-called unicorns that don't fully fit the unicorn mold and how it affects them. But let's have a discussion about something that I hope y'all will learn today if you can watch this video all the way through. In a team sports setting, and of course for simplicity's sake, let's just mention basketball, when you are put on the court, what is your role? Everybody has a predetermined role given to them by them coach or yourself mentally of what you have to do to be able to give your team the best chance of winning games. I'll use myself as an example while embarrassing myself at the same time. I was never the best basketball player until I got later in my high school life when I took the sport a little bit more seriously. When I was younger, I was usually the tallest and lankiest kid on the team, had exceptional athleticism for my age, and didn't mind getting dirty on the court. So you already knew what that meant. I played center. I played the role that was best suited for victory on a game-to-game basis for every team that I played for growing up. Of course, I didn't like it. When I got older, I became smaller than most people at my position, making my time playing harder, but that was what's best for victory, so I sucked it up until I got better at my actual guard skills. Now apply the same logic to NBA players. Every NBA player has a role to serve on their team to bring their teams wins, and I can tell you 9 times out of 10, a unicorn is not going to be using those secondary skills to bring their teams wins. I'll talk about other examples of players who had this problem later, but let's talk about the original one, according to people, Kristaps Porzingis. When he was in New York, he was able to do the whole unicorn thing, but if you notice, those moments were few and far between. But when he pulled off something, it was national headlines because he was one of the only few people who could ever do it at his height and at his skill set. But the true test of that skill set is when he was sent to Dallas, where it kind of got all exposed. He went from doing all that in New York to basically being a catch-and-shoot player for Luka. And their former coach and Rick Carlisle knew exactly what had to be done if he wanted to actually win games. And obviously, he took away his unicorn treatment that he had in New York. Even now in 2021 with Jason Kidd, who promised more touches for Porzingis, you can see from the numbers, his usual act isn't producing at all. And that's with even more offense for Porzingis. Why? Because in the NBA, his skill set isn't what will have them be a successful team. And when it comes to his guard skill set, the only time it's worth being used is against other big men who can't guard him on the perimeter or just can't guard anyone that can dribble in the first place. But even in today's NBA landscape, he's most of the time being guarded by wings and can't even do that type of stuff in the first place. But at the same time, let's talk about more of his guard stuff. He has a decent jump shot, but nowadays it seems to be getting worse and worse. And then when you evaluate his big man skills, which he doesn't seem to use anymore, that becomes more of a problem itself, because he doesn't use his true 7'3" frame to his advantage at all. There's plenty of examples of him not being able to post up people who are way smaller than him. And by the way, there is plenty of evidence of him not taking advantage of that sort of thing that you can find on YouTube, and I found it to be very sad. But if you think this one is a meaningless example, let's just get off of him and talk about some other examples of the same sort of problem with some other failed unicorn experiments. Let's first make an example of the next so-called unicorn since after the success of Porzingis' rookie season. Due to that success, people wanted to follow the trend of finding the next one, and the next one ended up being Dragan Bender. Now, there are tons of videos that talk about his situation to a great extent, so let's just make this fucking quick. Dragan was thought to be the next Kristaps or unicorn, and he had similar vitals to show for it. 7'1", long wingspan, nice shooting stroke, some playmaking and shot creation skills, and the highlights to boot from his time overseas. But just like the examples I want to talk to you about, he wasn't able to translate to anything in the NBA with said skills. Again, in the NBA, 9 times out of 10, your role will utilize your strengths. And with Dragan, he never had any true strengths he can use on the NBA level. And after 171 games in the NBA with the Suns, they gave up because they couldn't utilize him at all. Problems with aggression, shooting inconsistencies, and the most alarming thing, he couldn't use that 7'1" body for anything useful when his guard skills didn't work. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of using this analogy, but Dragan was truly 7'1" for nothing. From one tall European prospect to another, now we have a current player in Lauri Markkanen. Now he has the same deal, 7-foot player, nice jump shot, being able to put the ball on the floor, yada yada yada, but the same problems faced him when he became an actual NBA player. Now of course he did things way better than Dragan in the NBA sphere, but he still had his own problems, and that is utilization. With Lauri Markkanen, he had his own issues in his role when he was drafted to Chicago, mainly because he wanted to do more than he could handle in the first place. The transition from college to the NBA means some parts of your game would have to be sacrificed mainly for the sake of the team. In his case, due to the transition, he was now regulated to being a catch and shoot big, especially since he isn't showing any superstar or star upside. So tell me, what makes Lauri Markkanen a NBA unicorn? His ability to dribble and make moves off the dribble has been stripped due to his restrictions in the NBA. With his time with Jim Boylan, sorry Bulls fans, were hellish when he was faced with the problem being forced to play center and being told to be a better rebounder despite his lack of strength and how skinny he is. And just like Dragan, he wasn't able to utilize his 7-foot body for anything in the paint, offensively and defensively, which then regulates him to be more of a forward to not make that more of a detriment. But honestly, that seems to be the better role for him. When this role was reduced to basically being a bench shooter, he posted his best season efficiency-wise in Chicago. But unfortunately, it wasn't what the Bulls wanted from a player like him who was drafted at the 7th overall pick. So there goes another person who had unicorn written all over him that just didn't pan out. And now he is still trying to currently figure things out with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are running the 7-foot death lineup. I don't know where that lineup came from, but at least Lauri Markkanen is a part of it. Now, as one of the last sections, let's talk about the true unicorn and just how rare it really is to find one. Kevin Wayne Durant. He is what an actual unicorn is. Dude is 7 feet tall, no matter how many times he wants to tell you he's not. A living matchup nightmare for literally everyone. Plays defense both on the perimeter and the paint, has guard skills, and can create his own shots for himself and others. That should be the standard of unicorns. Not exactly like KD, because we shouldn't put KD's comparisons onto people. Dude is one of the best players ever. But if we're going to make a label for that, at least make it something similar to the actual standard. There are even talks about how other big men who can be considered unicorns, people like Giannis, Jokic, Kat, AD, and Embiid, but I find that to be false. Giannis doesn't have the perimeter game KD has. Jokic isn't the defender KD can be. We all know what I mean by can be. And I can say that because we know KD KD has been known to play defense when it's needed, but not 24/7, but we all know he can play defense. And of course, he doesn't have the perimeter shot creation skills that KD has. Cat, for the same reason as Jokic. AD, everybody likes to say is one because he likes to dribble and do mid-ranges and threes, but when I tell you that maybe one of the more overrated parts of his game, I don't know, maybe I'll make a video on that one of these days, mainly because of the numbers he produces from it, which isn't much, and Embiid for the lack of perimeter game and defense on perimeter. Do you see how hard it is to say that anyone is a unicorn when KD is the perfect embodiment of that? And it's funny too, because how this conversation started when KD talked about Porzingis before he got drafted and called him one himself, despite him being one himself. Now, is there an all-around talent that even scrapes the surface of what KD has? Some say Michael Porter Jr., but until he goes off, I'm just going to say that no one is, and that's how rare an NBA unicorn actually is. Now, to start off this conclusion, I know that the term unicorn is a pretty general case, but that's why I had to talk about it, because it's given to literally anyone with a very bland set of qualifications. And in this case, the people who I talked about earlier, and probably many others who will get that same later sooner or later, it's just not true. KD, in my eyes, is the one and only true unicorn, and the standard should be set to be that high. Otherwise, you're just a stretch big. You're literally just a stretch big, just like Laurie and Kristaps. I'm sorry, you're a stretch big. And just like many others until they become an all-around product like KD, or at least something close. But with that being said, looks like Michael Porter Jr. is y'all's greatest hope for anything close of being a unicorn. But as usual, what do y'all think about the topic that I brought up today? All responses will be appreciated in the comment section below, where I read all of them and respond to a good bit of them. But as always, I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned something new, as my vision for this channel is to inform and entertain. Again, like the video for more weekly content, check out the social medias for the inside life of Alvini and other channel news, check out my Twitch where I stream weekly and have to go through shit like this all the time. Yeah, literally Uno. Okay, Scrabble, I'll beat a bitch at Scrabble. Unless it's my mom. My mom beats me all the time. Fuck. Wait. And lastly, if you want to talk to your boy, there is always my Discord. And with all that out of the way, this is your boy, Alvini Linguine, saying peace. Also, Pokashevsky, or however you say his name, yeah, not him either. Don't even think about putting that in my comment section.